Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
As I believe I mentioned, I think on October 8th, one of my most personal connections to Israel is this podcast called Daf Yomi for Women. It's taught by Rabbanit Michelle Farber, and her organization is called Hadran. It's all about inspiring women to learn Talmud. And I found this podcast really by accident over 8 years ago, and I've been following it pretty closely ever since. And it's been very moving and inspiring for me in the last 2 weeks to follow along as this group of women based in Ra'anana, but really throughout the world. And now that the class has expanded so much, I think they're on their third cycle through Daf Yomi. So it's been over 15 years that this class has existed. It encompasses men, women, people of all genders. And so it's a real global community. And it's kept me grounded in my study of Talmud, but I think more than that, it's kept me grounded in the times that I struggle with reality. And this is a time when I am struggling with reality, as I'm sure all of us are. So we're going to do some learning this morning of our Parshat, and we're going to dedicate our learning, and I'm quoting Rabbanit Michelle Farber here, we're continuing to learn for the safety of our soldiers, the residents of the South and the North and the whole country, for the safe return of the captives, in memory of those who have fallen, and for refuah shlema to all those injured. And this is a beautiful tradition that we have in Jewish learning, to dedicate our learning to someone or something. And all of the koach, all of the intention, all of the effort we put into our learning can go towards that intention. So holding that very much in our minds this morning as we are together for Israel Solidarity Shabbat. So this week's Parsha is Noach. And this year studying this Parsha, I think, I'm not exactly sure why, but it caught me more than usual. Who is Noah? Who is Noach? Who is this person in this situation, and what can we learn from him this year? I think now that I'm learning with all of you, I'm realizing the reason why it caught me the most, more this year than usual, is back in last week's Parsha. You can follow along with me in the Chumash if you want. If you don't want to, you can just follow along with your ears. That also works. On page 34, the very last part of Bereshit, it reads, "The Lord saw how great was man's wickedness on earth, and how every plan devised by his mind was nothing but evil all the time." And so I'm looking at our world and I'm thinking, that sounds about right, unfortunately. And it continues, "The Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and his heart was saddened. The Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the men whom I created, men together with beasts, creeping things, and birds of the sky, for I regret that I made them." God's looking at the world, is seeing evil. God's recognizing that part of God's creation includes that there's good, there's evil, and humans can make a choice about what they want to do. And God is saying, I'm not sure this was such a good idea. Let's wipe it all out. And then we have the last pasuk, the last sentence of last week's Parsha, "But Noah found favor with the Lord." And I think that when I read the Parsha last week, that one sentence, Noah, filled me with hope. I think that, I shared about this last night. I've been struggling, as I think many of us have, to be hopeful about the future. Someone asked me last week, do you think that peace is going to happen? And I think really for the first time in my life, it was like unsure trending towards no. And I know that that's not a place that humankind can stay, and I know that's not a place where I can stay. So this idea that Noah in this evil world finds favor with the Lord, I was like, okay, maybe there's something good that we humankind can find here. So starting this week's Parsha, on page 41, chapter 6, verse 9, this is the line of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his age. Noah walked with God. So this sentence has been interpreted by our commentators in many different directions over the entire span of Jewish study. I'm on page 41, the commentary below the line number 9, it says, this is the line of Noah. And so the first person Noah, quote, gave birth to was himself. Usually when we have these genealogies, we say, this is the line of Noah, and Noah's oldest child was so-and-so. But instead, we say, this is the line of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. So this idea that Noah, in a world filled with evil, made the choice to do good. So was Noah a truly good person, Or was he just good, relatively speaking? So continuing on that below-the-line commentary, we have two opinions from two Talmudic scholars, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. And if you are familiar with Talmud, you've probably heard that Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish were a chavruta, they were a study pair. And Rabbi Yochanan was from the type of Jewish family where he had learned Torah since he was little. He was very immersed in Torah, and he was always around Torah scholars. And Rabbi Yochanan said, Noah was good in context, but if we met Noah today, we wouldn't be so impressed. Now, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan's study partner, he grew up as a professional thief. It was only after he met Rabbi Yochanan and they formed a relationship that Reish Lakish started studying Torah. And so he came from a very different perspective. And he said that Noah, not only was Noah righteous in his generation, if Noah were alive today in a more righteous generation, Noah would have been even more righteous. So I think that conversation is interesting, that the perspectives that we bring to Torah give us so much as we interpret our text. Okay, so moving on a little bit more. So we have sentence 11, the earth became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with lawlessness. And so, of course, for those Hebrew readers that have already studied the Parsha, this sentence jumps out a lot to us this year because the word for lawlessness is pronounced Hamas. This word is not the same as the terrorist organization. They're two different words, but they sound the same, and it's very evocative for us, especially this year. So holding that in mind, holding in mind that these are two different words that have this terrible common thread, we'll continue to our next pasuk, or next page, page 42, verse 14. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make it an ark with compartments, and cover it inside and out with pitch. So that verse didn't jump out to me so much, but the commentary below the line on that page very much did. Why did God command Noah to build an ark? Surely God could have saved Noah and his family by supernatural intervention. I would like some supernatural intervention right about now. I would have liked it even more 2 weeks ago. However, that's not happening. So our commentary, perhaps God hoped that the project would serve as a warning, moving onlookers to contemplate the threat of destruction and mend their ways. Okay, so humankind sees Noah preparing for this disaster and is like, okay, maybe something's going on here. Maybe we should change our ways. A bit aspirational, especially through the lens I have today, but we'll continue with our commentary. Or perhaps God wanted Noah to participate in some way in his own salvation, as the Israelites would many centuries later at the time of the Exodus. So thinking about the time of the Exodus, as we're holding all of this in our world that we're holding, reminds me of the Song of the Sea, which we sang this morning, which we sing every day at our tefillot. It's a prayer of victory. When we were able to be freed from Egypt because of God's help, we sang a song of victory. We celebrated our enemies being hurled into the sea, and we recognized that it was God who did that. So we don't know why God won't magically save us, but we do know that God can help us. And how does that help show up? It's a little bit mysterious to us because we can't see or know God's ways and understand them all the time. And that mystery is hard to hold sometimes on a normal day and very hard right now. Continuing with our learning, verse 17 on page 43. For my part, I am about to bring the flood, waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh under the sky in which there is breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. So in this disaster, Noah really was very much alone. He was with his family, that was 6 people, and he was with God. But he made it. Noah survived this disaster. And I think that as we're all in the middle of surviving a disaster together, some in much more unsafe ways than others, but we're all in this together. We're one people with one heart. The idea that we can survive this disaster is something that I need to hold. So then I thought this next, so going into the ark, going into this time of disaster, on page 44 and 45, verse 7, and I didn't notice this at all, but the commentary pointed it out to me. Noah with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. So the commentary, below the line on page 44, the word order, which lists all the husbands first and then the wives, implies that Noah and his sons enter separately from their wives. It would have been unseemly for them to be together with their partner while the rest of humanity was drowning. So this idea that even as Noah and his family are being saved, there's something that's not normal, there's something that's not right, and the love that we feel in our families wasn't even accessible to them at the time. Then on pages 45 and 46, jumping to verse 14 on page 45, talking about the Noah and the animals and his family in the ark, they and all beasts of every kind, all cattle of every kind, all creatures of every kind that creep on the earth, and all birds of every kind, every bird, every winged thing. So looking at the commentary on page 45, below the line again, numbered 14, lions and lambs, predators and prey, set aside their natural enmity and live together peacefully in the ark. This is something that I just, learning this story since childhood, I'm thinking of like a toy ark and all the animals, like two pairs of, and like the little toys and not actual animals. But the fact that these animals were able to live peacefully in this ark, in these close quarters, that was also not normal. That was miraculous. So the commentary continues, only when the danger was over did they revert to their old habits. And honestly, in this particular moment, learning this with you right now, I'm thinking about only when the danger was over did they revert to their old habits. And there are some things that when we're under threat, we do most strongly. And when the threat is over, we can relax about them a little bit. And I think that it's worth thinking about what are the things that we're doing most well given this time of stress. Is there anything that we want to continue even when, and God willing may it be soon, this threat is over? Continuing in the commentary, it will be a mark of the messianic age when traditional enemies learn to live cooperatively without facing an external threat. So I'll just read this one more time and let it sink in for myself here. It will be a mark of the messianic age when traditional enemies learn to live cooperatively without facing an external threat. So this comment about the messianic age, it jumped out to me very much because in my own family we have a healthy debate, a friendly debate about this concept of Messiah. Is this concept of Messiah a good thing, or is this concept of Messiah not such a good thing? And for me, the concept of Messiah is a very, very important concept. But equally important is that Messiah is not a person. We're not looking for a human being. The Messianic age is a period of time when the world will be perfected. So what will that look like? Well, we can't even agree on how to start repairing the world, so we don't really know what that will look like. In a time of war, we're not even thinking or talking about repairing the world. We're talking about getting through this moment. But for me, it's important to believe in a time where there can be peace in the world, when the lions and the lambs can lay down with each other and just have a nice time, when enemies can learn to live cooperatively without an external threat. It's so far away, like I say, but some of us, I think maybe even all of us, need to remember to believe in peace. So finishing up with this story in our Parsha, meanwhile, back in our Parsha, the flood has ended. We're skipping ahead now to page 48. Verse 16. Well, let's rewind to verse 15. God spoke to Noah saying, "Come out of the ark together with your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives." It's time to come together with your wife. It's time for life to go back to normal. So after this crisis, now it's time to go back to normal. Well, how did that go? So pages 48 and 49, number 15, the below the line commentary, the Midrash describes Noah as reluctant to leave the ark, afraid that his descendants will again defile God's clean world and bring on themselves another deluge. God must command him to leave, promising never to send another flood. I feel like that particular Midrash, there are a couple of other things suggested in our commentary on this page, but that Midrash is the most convincing for me. Now that the world has been completely annihilated, ready to be reborn. Noah has been in the safe place with his family. Now it's time to go out and have things go back to normal. It's hard to do. It's hard to act as if things are normal when for so long things haven't been normal. So that's the one commentary. There are a couple of others on this page, but the common thread for all of them is that Noah leaving the ark was not a process that went particularly smoothly. It was hard for Noah and his family, and especially for Noah, to transition back to normal life. There's also, we read it this morning in our Torah reading. It's a little bit farther ahead, pages 52 and 53. There's this incident where Noah gets so drunk that he doesn't know what's going on, and his sons respond to this in different ways. One of his sons kind of makes fun of him. The other two sons are a little bit more protective of him. So what did that incident with the drunkenness have to do with anything? Especially because alcohol is still a part of our culture in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of commentaries, both traditional and modern, on that. But the way that I'm learning from that this year is that Noah wasn't perfect. He went through a hard time. His actions demonstrated that even though the crisis was over, something within him wasn't quite right. He wasn't a perfect person. So, to wrap up, what can we learn from Noah this year? And who was he? The first thing we need to know about Noah is that he was righteous in a generation that was evil. We can learn from this example, and we can be different. We can be ourselves. We can follow God's instruction, and we can be righteous no matter what's going on around us. Noah also led his family through a harrowing experience. He partnered with God to rid the world from evil and start anew. And in this moment, we must remember and take this as an example that we should partner with God to rid the world from evil and start anew, and we have the opportunity to do that every day. The third thing that we have to learn about Noah this year is that when Noah came out of the ark, the world was not perfected. Even though that was what God was going for, it didn't entirely work, and Noah himself wasn't yet perfect. So again, we must be righteous no matter what's going on around us. We can survive a harrowing experience and know that God is with us. And we can be gentle with ourselves and others, our friends and our family, when we're behaving imperfectly. This is not an excuse for bad behavior, but it's acknowledging that we're human. So again, to touch back to our intention from the beginning, may our learning together today be for the safety of our soldiers, the residents of the South and the North and the whole country, the safe return of the captives, in memory of those who have fallen, and for refuah shlema to all those injured. Am Yisrael Chai, and let's say Amen.